Hey there, this is Paul Murphy, and today what I'm going to do is I'm going to be reviewing an honest review and going through in depth exactly what I think of EverWebinar. Now, for the purpose of this, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what EverWebinar is and exactly how you can use this amazing piece of software. Now that might be a clue to what my review is going to be by me saying it's amazing, because it's off the scale really good. And in 2017 and recently they've just updated it. You can still get the old EverWebinar, but the new EverWebinar has got loads more features. You can now customize the thank you page, which I will show you in the review, actually show you in the training. But what I was going to do today, I'm going to go through A to Z exactly how to set up your EverWebinar. From start to finish, so that you can actually see all the different features and all the new features, more importantly, of what you can do. One of the greatest new features is that you can actually have a URL directed from your offer, and you can actually hear my expression when I actually figure that out, because I haven't set up a webinar in a few weeks. When I actually found this out, which I was doing live on the actual review, I was starting to get really excited because it's a really good feature. But on top of that, what you've got is you've got the ability to have the thank you page. Now, on the old EverWebinar, you only had the one thank you page. So you might have seen a million webinars in the past and just seen the same boring page. Well, this page, now you have the selection. You can choose which page you want. In fact, you can have 3 separate landing pages. You do not even need any landing page software. Whether you've got ClickFunnels, lead pages, Thrive themes, any of that, you don't actually need it. You can just go straight to EverWebinar and you can run your webinars. Now, EverWebinar is a platform where you can run auto webinars. Now, what I would recommend is if you've been running your live webinars and you've got your perfect webinar ready to go, then why would you need to keep running live webinars? Okay, it's time consuming, you've got a business to run. So that's where you would need to run auto webinars. Now there's a few options out there, but the one I'm only going to be recommending EverWebinar because it's the only one I use, and to be honest, it's the only one, in my opinion, you'll ever will need to use. And it's really reasonably priced. I mean, it's a snatch for what you pay for a year. And you can have as many attendees as you want, and you can run them as often as you want. Now, with the software, you can run it every 15 minutes, every half an hour, or every hour. And you can run it at certain times of the day, so it looks natural, that sort of thing. So, my opinion is that it's the only software that you're going to need. Now, for me to prove that to you, obviously, the best thing for me to do is to give you a complete and total run through of everything that you've got. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link down below. Obviously, if you want to purchase it, you can purchase that here. And also, and if there's any discounts available, I'll include those as well. So you can go through my affiliate link and you'll get the best deal that's available at the moment. But also on top of that, what you can do is I will put a link. As I set this up, I'm going to tweak it at the end. Once I've finished showing you how to set it up, I'm going to tweak it. And then I'm going to give you like a 5-10 minute webinar as a test. And what you can do is you can go down below and you can see all the features that I've put in the training, and then you can test it for yourself. And then you can make up your own mind. And if it's something you want to purchase, then you can go ahead and purchase. So hopefully you enjoy that. If you've got any questions, please leave them below. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, because what I do is I do leave honest reviews and I let you decide for yourself. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm trying to give you the tools so that you can make informed decisions. And also what I'm trying to do is to make sure that you've got all the latest up-to-date software. So if you subscribe to the channel, I'll be able to tell you when something new comes out, and I'll be able to give you an honest review. They may be selling it to you one way, but I can actually say to you, well, yeah, okay, but this is how you really use the product. And and I'll give you the pros and cons as well. And also what we've got is we've got free training that comes out on anything to do with SEO, anything to do with passive income, and anything to do with consultancy, anything like that. We've got, this is what I do for a living all day long, and I always like to offer value, I always like to offer free training. So without further ado, enjoy EverWebinar, and here is a complete run through of how you can set up your very first webinar in like 30 to 45 minutes, and then you're ready to go. Enjoy. Hi, so today what I wanted to show you was EverWebinar. Now, EverWebinar and Webinar Jam are the same company, and they're co-founded by Andy Jenkins. And EverWebinar Jam is a live webinar platform where you can have obviously guests on live, and actually it's all hosted and it's all run really well. And EverWebinar is almost exactly the same platform, apart from the fact that it's for running auto webinars. So if you happen to run a live webinar, and once you've kind of tested it a few times and you've got it to where you want it to be, then obviously there's no point in you running a live webinar. The best thing next to do is to run an auto webinar. Well, it just depends on your business, obviously, but I mean, a lot of internet marketers will then run an auto webinar from their ads or from their business, where they've chosen the best webinar that they've used to generate the business, and then obviously you can run it on autopilot. And what you can do is you can have these running whenever you want. So you could have them every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, every hour, or once, twice, 3 times a week if you wanted to make it look more natural. However, my recommendation, if you're going to run auto webinars, is to be upfront with your audience, because they will be interacting with you anyway, and you will get those comments in the sidebar. But what you will need is to be more upfront with your audience these days, because people, especially in internet marketing, way more savvy now. They know what an auto webinar is like. If you happen to log in and get an advert and you notice that there's a webinar happening within 15 minutes or half an hour, people know it's an auto webinar. So if you want to build that trust with your customer, my first recommendation is to be honest with them and say, yes, it's an auto webinar, our best webinar, but we are checking the comments, something like that. So first of all, I just wanted to give you a really honest review of this product so that you can actually see what it's like. And what I'm going to do to give you that review and to show you how the product works is I'm actually going to build a webinar live. Now, as of now, you actually have 2 portals. You have this one that's it's called EverWebinarGendy.com dashboard, and you've also got the webinarjam.com members evergreen dashboard EverWebinar. Now, actually, the webinars are the whole process and the setup and everything is the same. It's just a completely different sort of panel, and you can log into either at the moment, as far as I'm aware. And the one that I've used is this one, but because I think they're going to probably be phasing this one out, I'm going to show you how to do it on this one, because this is the newest one, and this is the one that that I've noticed a lot of people have started to use. There's not a lot of difference, to be honest. It's just that they've kind of updated it and made it look a little bit more modern. However, I think they're both really good, and I don't really have a preference at the moment. I've only ever used this one, so it'll be quite fun testing out this one. But I've seen how this one works. So there is a fake one that I've done. So what we'll do is we'll do a new webinar. Right, so the first thing you need to do is you've got these buttons along the top here, and you will be able to work your way along when you're setting up a webinar. And it doesn't actually take that long. So the first thing you obviously need to do is actually give them the source of your evergreen webinar. And if you wanted to use a Webinar Jam, you'll be able to just transfer that over really simply. But as I haven't got Webinar Jam, I'm going to use an external video file, and I'm just going to put in I've got mine on Amazon S3, so I'm going to put that on there. And then, like you say, yeah, you can do a previous Webinar Jam session. So if you have Webinar Jam, you could use that there. And I will be doing a review of Webinar Jam a bit later. I'm going to repurchase it, and because I have got some live webinars I want to run, so I'm going to repurchase it and then show you how you can set up a live webinar. But it's going to be it's actually a very similar, straightforward process as this one. So yeah, so if you press confirm, you do need to know the duration of your webinar. Now, for that, I'm going to click on my webinar, and it should give me the time. So this 66:32, and you do have to get that. You have to get that really correct for it to work properly. So that's 1 hour, 06 and 32 seconds, 66:32. So that's right. So then you press confirm. So that's that bit done. And the basic configuration. Now, I'm not actually going to be using this webinar because it's an older one. So I'm just going to call this Webinar Jam. Actually, I'll call this Passive Income Ladder Test. We'll call it that. and we'll use the same name. So we'll just copy that. This is a previous webinar used for testing and a review. I'm just going to put that in there. So what you would put in here obviously is your what you want to, you'd fill out the webinar name for your reference, and then obviously that's just so that when you come into it, the webinar title that's going to be seen by your audience, and then obviously a little description again. If you can work out how to spell the word previous, that would be good, because I can't. And then, yeah, and then you've got obviously your English language. I mean, it's all fairly self-explanatory. And then press OK, confirm, and then it will tell you that you've configured it. And then obviously you need to put a presenter in. Now I'm just going to edit that because it's probably a good idea to put a picture in here. So right, we'll press confirm there. We'll add that in a bit later because you can actually add a picture in there, but for some reason it's not allowing me to do it right now. And we need to crack on with the rest of this. So webinar schedules. Now, when you run a webinar, an auto webinar, I think you have to add one schedule in, if I remember rightly. But we'll see as we go. So you can also send them to a replay. Now, if you're using automation, now Webinar Jam does have some email automation involved in it. And I would recommend using their automation for the webinar, because they have all the times integrated. So they'll let people know 10 minutes before, 15 minutes before. So if you're running an auto webinar on the hour or every 15 minutes, you don't need so much of it because they've only just registered and they're going to see it in a minute or in a few minutes or in half an hour. Whereas if you're going to be running an auto webinar twice a week, then I would recommend using EverWebinar's own email integration, and I'll show you how to use that in a moment, because they actually have the time of your webinar and they will send out the emails on the perfect times, and it does integrate with all the time zones across the world as well. So no matter where anyone is, they will get that email. So it's really good for that. I mean, that's fantastic. But having said that, if you want to send them to a replay if they miss it or whatever, then you can enable a replay or not enable a replay. Now, what I tend to do is I tend to not enable one. Okay, because I tend to do it a slightly different way, but that's again personal preference, and you can actually do that. Now you've got a just-in-time schedule, which I'll just read this to you. It says the feature mimics a scenario where the registrant is able to sign up with just minutes to spare and can start watching quickly instead of having to wait for the next available session. So this is quite good if you just want somebody to be able to just kind of get in and watch it almost immediately. That's up to you. I'm going to say no. We'll leave that one. No, that is what we do. Sorry, I got that wrong. Now, I tend to always do this on the hour, and there's a reason I do this. Now, you can, if you want to do it every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, every 45 minutes. I tend to do it on the hour because my ClickFunnels page, which I'll show you in a minute, actually is configured to actually give you a countdown to the next available slot in an hour. So when they register for the webinar, this will be all tying in with the same times. And again, this says that they can watch it between, not watch it between 11 PM and 7 AM. Well, I'm going to let my customers know it's an auto webinar. So if they want to watch it, I'll just do that. If they don't, if I say 11:15, then it shouldn't actually interrupt it at all because I'm only doing it on the hour anyway. If they want to watch it at 3 in the morning or whatever time in their time zone, it's absolutely fine. Again, this this is to make it look more natural, like it's more like a live webinar situation. Now, obviously, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Now, I'm just going to leave in Christmas Day and New Year's Day because people generally aren't going to be watching webinars on those days. Having said that, the only reason I'm leaving that in is because they are massive, big days in pretty much all over the world. So other than that, I wouldn't actually leave out any days, because again, I'm letting people know it's an auto webinar. And again, I recommend you do that. Again, you can let people know it's not an auto webinar. That's absolutely fine. People don't generally care that much. They tend to know, but it's just, for me, it's a trust builder. You say to people, look, this is a copy of our webinar. However, we are checking the comments, so please, get involved and comment when we ask you to. And they will, and they still do. Now, display schedules, right? So display the next immediate. Right, just in time, yeah. So that's just in time. For some reason, it's not letting me. I think I have to put in a schedule. So every day. I don't know. Let's say 8 p.m. in their own user's time zone, so that's fine. So I think we can confirm that now. Okay, we'll see. That may or may not work. Again, normally I watch these, so I haven't done one for a while, and I'm kind of doing it from memory. So, but it's really simple to go back and correct. So the registration page and process. Right, okay. So you can choose a registration page that you want it to send your customers to. Now, depending on whether you're running from your website or if you're running from any landing page software, you can obviously use your own landing page software and have that configured. Now, what I've got, if I just show you here from my ClickFunnels account, is it says here, Paul Murphy shares his free steps, for, and whatever. And then what this does is this actually counts down to the next available time. Now, the time here in the UK is 10:20. So this is showing me that the next available webinar is going to be then. And then instead of actually going to the landing page that Webinar Jam provide, it's going to come up with this login. Now this login obviously takes you straight to the actual webinar, and there you go. I've got sort of an exit pop as well, and then it tells you, it gives you put scenarios. Now, obviously, if you don't have ClickFunnels, you don't need to do this. You can actually just use one directly from Webinar Jam. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to configure ClickFunnels, because most of you won't have ClickFunnels, or some of you won't have ClickFunnels at least. So what I'll do is I'll choose, and they've got some new ones as well on here. They used to have 2 or 3 that were worth looking at. What have I done there? Okay, hold on. There we go. Next. There we go. Right, okay. So we'll choose one of these, and I quite like the look of that one. So let's use that. I mean, some of these are really good now. So it actually shows you on here when the next event starts. Obviously, you can configure all this. You can put something behind it, and if you can see where we put in the title there, and it looks as though you might even be able to change it here now. So a lot of this is brand new. So this is really good. So this obviously you can put what you want in here. I'm just going to leave that, and then it's going to show you the schedules. But again, this is not real at the moment. This is just a template. So we'll go to actions, save and exit. Here we go. So, and also the great thing you can do here is you can enable split testing. So if you're running ads and you want to, test out 2 different pages to see which one converts better, and you should always be split testing anyway, depending on, especially when you're spending money on advertising. Advertising's not cheap, especially Facebook these days. You should be doing a split test on every single step of your funnel, of everything you're doing. And also, this isn't necessarily part of the review, but just a nice handy tip for you. Only ever change one thing. Now, what I would generally do is, if I'm going to enable split testing, is I would use the same page twice, and I might change an image. Okay, you can actually split test two completely different pages. That's up to you. But in general, the general rule of thumb is you change one thing, and because if you change, I mean, obviously, if you change a page, that is changing one thing, so that's okay because you know that one page is converting better than the other. But if you use the same page, you would want to change the title, or you'd want to change an image, because if you change too many things, you can't actually see which one is where the difference is. You need to be able to diagnose where the difference is of what it is that you're split testing. So just, that's another useful tip, hopefully there. So we'll press confirm on that. And then, okay, so what do we need them to enter? Yeah, first name and email is absolutely fine. It's really good when you're sending emails to your customers. Obviously, it's nice to be able to address them by their name, and obviously you have to have their email address. Now, you can also get this integrated with virtually any autoresponder as well. So if you don't want to use Webinar's Jam's autoresponder that they've got within their platform, or you want to use it, but you want to use your own at a later date, obviously you can send that to your Webinar Jam. So, this is new. Charge to register for the webinar. That's cool. So let's have a look at that. Charge a registration fee. Okay. Brilliant. Okay, I've never charged for a webinar as of yet, but it just depends. A webinar is just a way of presenting information, and you may want to have some valuable information, and you may want to be able to charge for that. So that's fantastic. So we'll say it's free still. Password protection. Anyone with a valid webinar link will be able to access. Yeah. Okay, that's absolutely fine. The purpose of our webinar is to try and get people on it, so we don't want to kind of put too many barriers in their way, really, in this instance. So you have to confirm before you can click next, by the way. That's something that it does get a little bit frustrating, but you do have to do it. So webinar notifications. So okay, so this now integrates with Twilio if you want to use SMS. I've generally always sent emails, but SMS is really powerful, especially if you're running a webinar in the next 15-20 minutes. You're not going to need it because they've just registered. If you're running a webinar once or twice a week, a lot of people are going to be out and about or doing something else, and they're not getting their emails. I mean, most of us nowadays probably do get our emails on our phone and get notification, but there are the odd few that don't, and an SMS is obviously more powerful. So that is a really good tool to have, but it has to be integrated with Twilio by the look of it. So I've never done that, so I'm not gonna do that right now. And then you've got all your messages. So this is the autoresponder that you've got here. Now you can set this you can pretty much set this how you want, if I remember rightly. Obviously you want a welcome message to send them immediately. And what you can have in that welcome message is, actually it shows you the exact email. So you can put whatever you want in there, the description, or you can just leave it exactly as they've set it out. The description is going to be whatever your description is. The title is going to be whatever your title is, obviously date and time. And then, yeah, so this is, there's not a lot you need to do here. Again, it just depends on how much you want to customize this, and you can actually customize it as much as you want. And so you can leave that, and we will for the purpose of this. And then you can have your reminders go out at certain times. So this is a friendly reminder, upcoming register, make sure. Again, you can customize this as much as you want. Now, this will all depend on when your webinar is. You don't want to hassle them with 30 emails in a day, but you would want to let them know one day before. And I would generally I'd give them 3 emails. So one 24 hours before, because if you think about it, if your webinar's tomorrow night and you got an email today saying your webinar's tomorrow night, that feels natural. That's good. And then you're going to need to give them another little gentle reminder, say a couple of hours before. So I usually say 2 hours before, 24 hours before, 15 minutes before is a really good reminder system. And it doesn't annoy people, because people expect to be reminded a couple of hours before. They expect to be reminded the day before. We live busy lives, and 15 minutes before is like we're starting now. Okay, so those are good time zones. So I would say 24 hours before. Yep, absolutely. And then there's one here that's 15 minutes before. But what you can do is add 2 hours before. There we go. So again, you can customize all this. I'm not going to do that now because it's pointless. It's going to be based on what you want to do, but it gives you the basics of everything you need in the email, and you don't actually even have to do any more than that if you don't want to. But again, it's always good to let them know about your webinar, what's coming up. All of this sort of stuff is a real good opportunity to talk to your audience and make sure you get a high attendance rate. So live post webinar message now. Again, this is, let me just check this because I can't remember what this is. Okay, so if you're going to be sending a replay or you want to communicate with them after the webinar for any reason, then that's where you put a message here. I have never used this, bearing in mind I don't have, there's no email there. I use my own autoresponder after that. I use ActiveCampaign. So what's happening here is that when they register, there's a tag going over to ActiveCampaign, and then that kicks in after the webinar. And then I'll send them to my replay, my other way. But you can do all that through here, and you know that's a very good system. So we'll just press confirm on that, and then we're going to. This is where you would integrate with your autoresponder, so you can choose any of the major autoresponders. It's got most of them on here, MailChimp, and if your autoresponder isn't on here, you can always contact them, and you can also configure it through Zapier. So or Zapier, depending on how you say it. If your autoresponder isn't on here, you can actually set up a free Zapier account, connect that's another training video, but you can connect you can actually send your tag from Webinar Jam to your autoresponder using Zapier, and Zapier will sort of integrate with virtually any of the others that they don't connect with. But again, they're really helpful, really good service. So you can email them and say, look, do you use this? And they may say, well, we do actually. We've got, and they'll show you how to do it. So I'm not going to set that up now for the purpose of this. And you can embed your affiliate link into your webinar pages. So powered by webinar. Okay. Right, yeah, if you want to, if obviously once you've signed up for webinar, I'm an affiliate, you're going to be an affiliate as well, because obviously you can promote them and make money. So I'm not going to do that for the purpose of this, but yes, you can do that. So integrate to third-party tracking system. So yeah, so this is for all your tracking. So if you're using Infusionsoft or any of those. You can get all the data. This is, again, obviously if you've got Facebook pixels or anything like that, you can put in various information. But again, there's a little training video on there that might not be for the pixel, but yeah, you can basically track everything, and you can find out your open rates and everything. And I'd urge you to do that, and I'd urge you to get some sort of tracking software as well. Webinar Jam will give you some stats anyway, but again, you will want to have this all in one house, and they've set that up so that you can do that. Okay, so to customize your thank you page, well, I never. I don't think they used to have this. They used to have only one thank you page, which is really good. So we're just going to choose one. Brilliant. Okay, this is much better. Now, the old Webinar Jam, this one has got one thank you page. Let me just show you. So as you can see, this is kind of straightforward. Yeah, doesn't even give you the option of a thank you page, whereas this actually says customize your thank you page. The thank you page is great, but people have seen it a million times because because you didn't have an option, and you couldn't send your thank you page offline. It had to be on EverWebinar. I always thought that was a bit of a pain in the backside, because you would prefer to have, you know, something you can at least customize, and that's what you've got here. So we're just going to go save and exit, because I'm not going to show you how to. I mean, you'll be able to work out how to customize that. That should be fairly straightforward. So we'll press confirm. And you can survey your this is new, I think, as well. So you can, once they've actually gone onto the thank you page, you can ask them some questions and get some really valuable information from your audience. And surveys are the way forward. I mean, I don't know if you've started using surveys in your business yet or not, but if you haven't, yeah, this is, I mean, obviously the more you know about your customers, the more you can market to them. So yeah, brilliant. I mean, I don't know how good this is. I've not going to use it, and I'm not going to be doing that now for the purpose of this. But again, I would urge you to watch that, and I am going to be watching that straight after this. So next. And obviously you can customize your own countdown page. So this page will be, it's not your registration page. Let me think about this. I'm just going to pause this and find out what page this is, because I'm a little bit confused. Okay, yeah, so this looks like a new feature. So if they arrive at the webinar before the time, so I mean, it's not the same as the registration page, even though some of them look very similar by the look of it. That looks exactly the same. If they actually click on the link, or if they want to arrive before, say they're getting there early, you know, sometimes you're advising your audience to get there a lot earlier and everything, but you're not actually live yet. There's going to be a countdown page, and you can customize that. So we won't choose the same as that one. We'll choose that one just for the sake of this. Not because I prefer it, just because it's different to the other one. So we'll just put save and exit. And again, I guess you can customize it, and you know, to how you want. So pre-configure your webinar polls. Now this is brilliant. So what you will do, we're going to add a poll here. So we're going to add a question. Now, what you would do is that once you've got your webinar and you've run it a few times on, you know, like I said, you should really be using a live webinar that you've run a few times, and you've actually got the perfect webinar to go on your auto webinar. That's always what I'd recommend. You should be running your webinar a few times first to a live audience, so that you can get that feedback. And you know, you might not be explaining something very well, you might not be doing something, so you should have run it to a live audience. Even if it's just a live audience of a load of your friends, you need to have that feedback so that you can make sure that it's going to be working correctly for you. It should be tested really before you put it on an auto webinar. Now, at the times that you're asking questions to your audience, obviously you can just get them to use the chat box. Now they'll be chatting, they won't be seeing each other's chat, but obviously you will get that information back at a later date. But what you can do, obviously, if you say to them, would you prefer sausage rolls or would you prefer a bacon sandwich, for instance, if that's one of your questions, instead of them just writing in sausage roll or bacon sandwich, obviously you can actually collect that information via a poll. So you could put, do you prefer sausage rolls or bacon, or a bacon sandwich? Now, I mean, I think it's sausage. Here we go. Now, what you can do with this is, obviously you can, if you want to, you can have it come up as you're asking the question on the webinar, which is good because it kind of ties in. So if you're asking a question on the webinar, you can have it come up with that. But also, what I found really good is that you can just start asking people stuff throughout while you're chatting. You know, you could even say, "Oh, hi, this is this is somebody else from the admin team. I'm just going to ask you a few questions." If you wanted to make it look more natural, and make it look live, if that's what you wanted to do, you could do that. And then you could just start asking questions. You could say, you know, if while you're demonstrating something else on the auto webinar, on top of that, you could be asking them questions about their business. You could be asked, if you want to gather information, this is your opportunity to do that throughout. Again, obviously, you don't want to be bombarding them with questions because you want them to watch your presentation, but this is a really good way. So I'm just going to put in sausage rolls. And you'll get all this information given to you from your auto webinar, so you'll be able to log in and see what people have answered. So I'm just going to do that. Oh, and we want to start this poll. So obviously, if you've run an auto webinar, you want to write down all the times that all the questions that you ask in live, so that it comes up at exactly the same point. So because I'm going to be running this webinar live and showing you it. I'm obviously not going to film the whole thing, so we'll do it right at the start. I mean, it will look a bit daft, but it will just give you an idea of how it works. So we'll go no minutes, no, and we'll go after 10 seconds, okay? And we'll end the poll, no minutes, and we'll end it after 20 seconds. So it's just going to be up for 10 seconds. So this is obviously when it appears in the chat box and when it finishes. And then you can make the results public if you want. Again, if you're running an auto webinar, I wouldn't do that, because you may only have one person on there. So, you know, I would keep that. But again, that just depends on how you're running your webinars. So let's press save. Oh, I didn't like that. I think I have to put in 0 here, then 0, then 0, then 0. Let's try that. Yeah. Right, okay, so the live chat box. Right, you can have no chat box whatsoever. You can have the live chat box, and you can have some imported questions. So when people actually watch your live webinar and I ask questions, you can actually just leave those in there or delete them as you want. As your auto webinar evolves, you can either show them to people if you want to, or you can just have that as information from yourself. So it just depends on how you want to run it. If you're trying to run it as though it's live, then this is a really good feature. If you're running it as though it's an auto webinar, and you're telling people it's an auto webinar, you can say to people, here's some of the comments that people have run from previous webinars. Again, it gives it that feeling, you know, people then feel that it's more live than it is. So it's a really, really good feature. Or you can just have it as an enable live. They will be able to comment, but they don't see anything. So you've got all those options. You can actually display a question box that will be sent to you via email. And again, it's about the transparency of your webinar. If you're saying to people that this isn't live, but if you put a question in, then we will get that afterwards. Then you can use that if that's what you prefer. I tend to stick with the live chat because I'm being honest with them, but I still want them to get involved. And then you can obviously put in, if you want to, you can so this is if you wanted to actually add fake information from people that, you know, say someone called John, or if you wanted to send them a message, a welcome message. Actually, we'll do that. Let's send them a message. 5 seconds in, I'm going to put Paul Murphy. Okay, and then I'm going to add that. So that is going to be a message that I'm going to approve. That's it. So, and obviously, if you do have some messages from Webinar Jam or anything like that you want to import, you can put them all in here. So it's really simple for you to do that. So I'm just going to leave that as it is for now, and we'll enable live chat. Now, feedback flow announcements. Okay, I'm just going to pause this because I don't know what that is. So this looks really good. So instead of having this in the chat box, you have this come underneath the chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow that for after. I don't want all this stuff to come up. So I'm going to put from Paul, and then I'm going to put after the. I'm going to just put this is awesome. And I'm going to have that run for 5 seconds. That should be enough. and I'm going to have that running at 45 seconds for 5 seconds. Okay, so I've not actually used this, so we'll just see what that looks like. Oh, we have to put a 0 in there. So we'll press confirm. So they've added quite a lot of new stuff now. Now, product offers is brilliant. So at the end of your webinar, you're going to have a call to action. And this is where you would put that in. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a sale. It could be that you're trying to get somebody on the phone call to talk to you. It could be that you're directing them somewhere, whatever. So this is going to be what you're going to put it. This is where you're going to put this in. So that would be really good. And what I do tend to do on the webinar, again, personal choice, but I would give them a URL that they can go to. And sometimes it's good to buy a unique URL. And I think I've got helpmegetleads.com. So, you know, you can actually put that up on your webinar, or you can buy a specific webinar that kind of directs them straight to that page. Which is always good, because if they can remember something, they may forget, or they may not know where your webinar's gone, or, you know, I mean, obviously they'll have emails, but if they're just thinking about it on the cuff and they want to go to your webinar, then obviously they may remember a URL. So, you know, anything that helps them move forward is always good. So configure your webinar polls. Okay, well, that's done. Live chat box. I think we've done all this. Redirect to external websites. Let's just have a look at this. Just going to pause this because I can't remember what this is. So this is really cool. I've just watched this little video here, and this is really good. So what you can do is at the end of the webinar, rather than it just ending, you can redirect them to the page you want to go to, which, you know, I've got this schedule appointment page, which is helpmegetleads.com. So you can actually direct them straight to that page. Or what you can do is during the actual webinar, at some point, now I'm going to do this. We're going to do this. So I'm going to do this after 2 minutes and no seconds. And then I'm going to direct them to this page, which is my schedule once appointment page. And then what you can do is you can schedule them that and actually open a new tab. Now, obviously, I'm doing a lot of these things in the first couple of minutes so that I can show you how they work. You would not have loads of crazy things going on in the first couple of minutes of your webinar. But yeah, I've never used this, so we're going to see if this works. So, you know, what you can actually say in your webinar is, I'm opening a new tab in your browser. You don't even need to put in the URL. Just go there and book an appointment, which is fantastic. I mean, I've not known any webinar software to do that yet. So that's really exciting. Now, sticky messages is straightforward. It's just a message that you can have pop up and stay there for a while. Again, I'm not going to show you how to do that. You can play around with that. That's fairly straightforward. Display number of attendees. Now, okay, so you can either have, again, depending on how transparent you do or don't want to be. Now, even if you're running auto webinars, you can expect, obviously, if you're running lots of adverts, you can expect a lot of people to be attending your webinar. Now, I've got a couple of tips on this because I've run these quite a lot. Now, if you use a fixed attendees, that's quite good, but it doesn't look very organic. However, that's fine if you wanted to show 150 people, 250 people, 500 people, 1,000 people. You can do that, and it will say at the top of the webinar, 500 people, and it will just say that throughout the webinar. Okay, and I've used that and I like that. Now, what you can do with dynamic is you can have it sort of going up and down. And the only thing with that I do find is the higher the number of attendees that you put in. So say you put in 500 here, okay, what it tends to do is it tends to show you an organic flow of attendees. So what will happen is that not 500 people are going to be in, and the number will slowly start to creep up till it gets to about 500, about halfway through to about 3/4 of the way through. But then dynamically what happens is it tends to drop, because that's what would happen in a real webinar. People will leave. However, they tend to make a lot of people drop. And I can't seem to work out how to fix it. I did actually contact them and they said that it's not something they were looking at. So unfortunately, if you use the dynamic one, my advice would be, just depending on how many people you would expect, is to make the number a bit lower, maybe 150. And I tend to make it a sort of odd number, like 152, 149. But again, you can do that however you want. 150 is fine. And then what would happen is that when a few people drop off at the end, dynamically it's only going to show 10 or 15 people dropping off. Whereas if you're using 500 or 1,000, it shows quite a lot of people dropping off, which, you know, might give the impression to some of your audience that people are losing interest. And you don't obviously want that to happen either. So even though it looks good, it doesn't always serve you. In my experience. Again, it's hard to do a split test on that, so you can't tell for sure whether that's working or not. It's just something that when I've watched the webinars, I've thought, ooh, lots of people are leaving my webinar. So, you know, you might, in that case, you might want to use fixed. But we will use dynamic so I can show you it, because then obviously fixed is, you know, it's going to be the same, but just with the same amount all the time. So we'll confirm that and we'll do 150. And live sales alert. Okay, yeah, so if you're selling a product and you want something to appear, again, you can put that in whenever you want at whatever time you want. And pre-configure your file share. I'm just going to pause this because I don't know what that is. I think I was being a bit daft. It's pretty straightforward. Basically, that is if you want to, say you want to give them a free PDF or something. Sometimes you go to webinars, they'll say if you stay to the end, we'll give you this, that and the other. And you can add them all in there. So you can add a PDF and all the rest of it. So we won't do that right now, but it's pretty straightforward. Even though I didn't understand, it was pretty straightforward. So, and obviously you've got your webinar replay page that you can enable or disable. So it's got, you know, lots of strong features on here. In fact, it's got better and better. And then that's it. You've gone through the whole process. Now, the first time you do it, it's going to take a little while. And then what you can do is you can clone this website, clone this whole system. And then obviously if you're running different webinars and all the rest of it, you can just clone it and then change the source video and then tweak the rest of it. You know, so you won't have to do all of that setup every single time. Now, if we go to where it says your links, okay, so the link to the registration page is here. So I'm going to show you that first. Right, so it says the webinar, we'll do this. It says the webinar is going to start in 1 minute. So if we press register now, 11 AM, Paul Murphy, and we'll press register now. How about that for timing? So now we're at the actual thank you page. And I don't know if you heard that, but I actually got an email from Webinar Jam. So you can actually watch this. Oh, it's just Andy Jenkins. So you'd obviously put your own webinar page thing in there. And then if we go to the webinar link, we will see that extra page that we put in if anybody comes here too soon. Obviously, this is going to start in a minute. So what we're going to do, now that is that link there, we'll just go back to that and I'll show you. That link is obviously if you want somebody to register directly. If you want to embed the registration box in your website, you can actually use this link here and it will actually embed the page like I showed you here. The button is a standard button. It's like a blue button that says register. You've probably seen it around, but there is ways to tweak it so that you can make it slightly different. But there's other training on that on YouTube, so you can search that out. And the other, sorry, that's the direct to the live room. So this is the actual registration link that you would that actually takes you to that registration page. So obviously if you're using your own page, you use that one. If you're using their page, you use that one. So I think we're about to go live. 6-5. Let's have a look at this then. So you probably won't hear this because it's going to be I don't have the sound audio set up on this, so we'll just show you how it works visually, and I'll talk you through what's happening. To be honest, you don't need to hear the webinar itself. So at the moment, the way I had this set up is that when I recorded my original webinar, there's actually some music playing at the moment. I had 1 minute of this saying the webinar is starting in just a moment, just to allow people to log on in time. But for your auto webinars, you generally want to start fairly sharpish. And if you look up here, you've got the dynamic. So it's now showed 122 people logged in. Now it's gone up to 123. It's given you a countdown timer of how long the webinar is running for. Okay. And then obviously, if you wanted to type in hello here, it will have your name and it will say hello, and it will look like you're saying that to the group. Now this is what you'd have come up at the end, but obviously we set it all to come up fairly quickly. I can't pause that, so I can actually hear that. So it's a bit frustrating. So to try and talk over my own voice, which you can't hear, but I can. That is obviously where they can book the time slot. So isn't that good? So you can actually click that, and it takes you straight to that page. I need to change the server of my website actually, because it's running a bit slowly. Either that or I need to change my internet provider at home, because that's still taking for ages to come up. But that's basically, there we go. So that then comes up there, and this will disappear in a minute because this offer is like a sticky offer. And also on top of this, we should have. There were some other messages I think should have come up by now, but I can't remember. So that obviously has disappeared, but again, you'd have that probably running to the end. And then I don't know if by turning this up and down, actually, it's changing the volume that I'm actually going across, because I'm going to turn that down so I can't hear myself talking on the webinar, because I'm actually it's actually live, as in it's happening now. And the other messages, I can't remember what else we configured, but they don't seem to be coming up. But it may well be that the other one took over that one. So it would just be a case of going back and tweaking and finding out and testing. You'd need to be doing testing. And this is another really good feature of the new Webinar Jam, is that you can, if you don't want to get involved with the chat, I mean, this used to be here whether you like it or not. Whereas now, look at that, isn't that cool? And then it will say Webinar Jam at the bottom, and then it will have your affiliate link. So that's really good. That's about it, really. That is the review of Webinar Jam. And I'll just show you my email, actually, if we go into my Gmail. And there it is. So this is the webinar confirmation. This is all the stuff that we put in. And this says, your webinar's starting at 11 o'clock. You've just registered, all the rest of it. Obviously, if it's just in time, then that's all they need, because it's happening now. But again, they'll send out these emails for you based on the time that you have specified for your webinar. And like I say, I always recommend 15 minutes before to say it's just starting, 2 hours before, or 1 hour before, 1 or 2 hours before, not generally both, but you can do, that's absolutely fine. And then 15 minutes before, 24 hours before. That would be my preference. But again, you can do that how you want. So hopefully that was helpful. And if you want to purchase Webinar Jam or EverWebinar, you can do so through my affiliate link down below. Also, what I'll include down below is a link of a sample webinar using all the features that we included in this training. I'll change the times around a little bit, and I'll put a very short video so you can see it from start to finish, how it comes up with your offer and how it comes up with everything as per you use it. Obviously, make sure you put in a real email address so that we can send you the email, so that you can check the email system and see how that works as well. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next video.